Good afternoon and welcome to week 5 of Senior Mash, looking at and talking rugby union. And absolutely delighted to have a guest with me this week, and that is Chris Heal. Chris is the editor of Talking Rugby Union and heads up all things content with National Rugby League. Do follow Chris on all social media, but I take it as a privilege to have known Chris for nearly 12 years. First met Chris when my son said, "What do you think of this journalist covering Stockport rugby?" And I read one of Chris's match reports and I was absolutely gobsmacked at how National League rugby could be reported. So, Chris, welcome.
No, thanks for having me, Mark. Very kind words. As you say, it's been a long time that we've worked and known each other for. And no, thanks for letting me come on and join you in your adventure on Substack.
Yeah, no, Substack's an interesting place to be. Um, and I'm learning all the time. But let's think about the week that's just gone by, Chris. How's sport been for you this week? I know Liverpool managed to win 1-0 against Crystal Palace, but how's the rugby been?
Yeah. I mean, we won't dwell on Liverpool too much, Mark, because I could go on about that for forever. But yeah, in terms of the rugby, as you say, there nationally, rugby has been a bit of a passion of mine ever since I started reporting on Stockport in, as you say, sort of 9, 10 years ago now, Mark. Well, no, more than that probably. So nationally, rugby is a lot of my focus when it comes to a Saturday afternoon. And yeah, yet again, I can't believe we're already at the start of October, but the season's very much getting into its stride now, and there are some fantastic games across National One and National Two. Of course, you keep your eye on your Premiership stuff on a Friday night and all the way through to a Sunday afternoon. But from sort of 2:30 to 6 o'clock on a Saturday, it's all eyes on National League rugby for me, and there were some cracking games once again.
Good, yeah. And you'll see in the background, Chris, I've gone with American football rather than National League. Do you get a chance to have a look at any of the NFL on TV this weekend?
It's very weird you say that, Mark. So my brother, I've got a twin brother, and he is massively into his NFL. And last night, his team, the Bengals, were playing. I don't ask me why he supports the Bengals, but he started supporting them 3 or 4 years ago. So we ended up watching that, and it was, I'm not really massively into NFL, but I was watching it, and it was quite engrossing, to be honest. And it went into overtime, and my brother's team lost, and so it was a really interesting watch. And I know there was the game at Tottenham's ground as well, wasn't there? On yesterday on Sunday, and I know they've got a couple of more games lined up in London. So yeah, very coincidental you asked that one, Mark, because yeah, that was my Sunday night viewing yesterday.
And certainly, Chris, I think one of the things that NFL does is it helps encourage fans to go and watch the game. And I know that's been one of your key drivers this year so far with National League Rugby, is to get those people along to the game. And hopefully you can get the likes of Chris Ashton there and a few of the well-known superstars. But you're always in and around rugby, and you're encouraging spectators to get to live games.
Yeah, it's I don't know. We might be biased, Mark, because we've got a vested interest in National League Rugby, but every single person I kind of talk to is either who likes the rugby is either going to a game or is watching a game on TV. And I just think it's so important that level 3 and level 4 of rugby, which is National 1 and National 2, which I know you've spoken about before on your Substack, Mark, that where we need to get more people going to it, because it's such an undervalued, I think, level of rugby. The entertainment on show on a Saturday is fantastic, and some of these clubs are charging, I don't know, maybe a fiver or a tenner to get in, which seems just great value for money. And as I say, I've got mates here where I live, not far from Wilmslow, who are either playing for Wilmslow Rugby Club, or they've got a vested interest in Macclesfield, which is just up the road, or they're asking about what Lim are doing and stuff like that. So, there definitely is interest there, but it's all about maybe getting people more aware of the level of rugby that is being played at level 3 and 4, and not just focusing purely on what England are up to in the Premiership as well.
Right. Well, I mean, for me, I'm enjoying doing these Substack articles. I've got to say, I'm very impressed with Steve Borthwick listening in last week and having highlighted Alex Lazowski. He's straight into the England training squad, so I'll take that as a tick. And then I was at Park Lane to watch Sedgley Park over the weekend, and sure enough, as I was doing a piece to camera over my shoulder, I spotted Sam and Joe Bedlow watching National League live. So great to see Sale Sharks players getting themselves down to the matches and watching the matches live. And then just a shout out for a guy called Zav. Zav has been a long-term supporter of Talking Rugby Union and is currently heavily involved with the Cypriot national rugby team. So more on that in a moment. There you can see me at Park Lane, and over my shoulder, there they are. So get down, watch live rugby. As Chris says, it's there for us all to enjoy. For a fiver, it's brilliant entertainment. So week 5, what have I seen? Well, interesting. Some results. Well, Friday night it was Sale Sharks and Gloucester, and when I watched that game, there were moments where I thought Sale were going to run away with it, but Gloucester just kept coming back, and it was thoroughly entertaining. I don't know what you made of that game. If you got the chance to see it at all, Chris?
Yeah, I watched it back on Saturday evening. It's funny that you mentioned the Bedlow there. I thought he was pretty strong for Sale, actually carrying forward. It might be something they've missed, obviously, with Manu leaving in the summer. But yeah, I thought Gloucester really wanted to play the rugby, didn't they? Obviously, Christian Wade scoring a hat trick the other week was always going to put the spotlight on him, and I know I think he got injured, didn't he? And so his evening was cut short. But I thought Thomas Williams and Gareth Anscombe ran the game really well, and yeah, they're looking like a very decent outfit this year, Gloucester. Certainly keep ball alive mentality, but fair play to Sale. They were extremely clinical when they got into the 22, and Aaron Reid got man of the match and had a hand in a couple of tries, didn't he, Mark? But I think that's possibly, I know going off 3 games, and the Sale's first game against Harlequins was not the best watch in the world, and obviously they were beaten by Saracens in round 2. But yeah, that's definitely Sale's best performance of the season. But I think that determination to dig in and be clinical when they needed to be was something they lacked last season. So to get over the line, get the bonus point at the AJ, the Salford Community Stadium now, I should call it, Mark, it is a decent platform for them to build on going into Newcastle on Friday night, I think.
Yeah, that's going to be a big game. And talking about promoting the game, it's really encouraging to see both Sale and Newcastle giving the game the real spotlight and really giving fans something to want to turn up for. So well done to both clubs. Into the Championship, Ealing and Doncaster, I think they're the 2 teams that at the start of the season I would have thought were very much vying for a promotion. And I think this result probably proves that they're the 2 that are in the mix. I'll do a little bit more on the Championship over the coming weeks, because it's an intriguing situation with the RFU issuing tenders for clubs to join that league. And I suspect there'll be a few in the National League that are up for joining that tender process. I don't know what you think, Chris.
Yeah. Obviously, I've not heard too much detail about it, and I'm sure I'll get to learn a little bit more going forward. But definitely, I think that's the whole kind of approach which the RFU are taking, Mark, that they are offering the chance for clubs in National 1 to apply to be in the the new tier 2 structure, if you like, going forward. So there's definitely clubs in National 1 who have the facilities, have very passionate owners who have the financial backing to potentially, make their club a second tier rugby union club in England. So it'd be very intriguing to see which clubs do put themselves forward for that. But just in terms of those clubs who have gone up via the natural route, Mark, of promotion over the last couple of years, we know Caldy and Cambridge have been one of them. Chinner have started really well in the Championship as well. I think they're either second or third in the league. So it does show that these clubs in National 1 can have the capability of playing tier 2 rugby. So it'd be interesting to see, with the new approach the RFU were taking, which clubs fancy the chances in that, and whether it's sustainable for them.
And then, sort of dropping down in the results, I've gone with a couple of National 2 results, and also the game I was at, Sedgley Park versus Bishop Stortford. Got to say, I thought Bishop Stortford handled the game incredibly well, and I'll show you some analysis in a moment on that game. Lymm Harrogate. Well, Lymm for me have been somewhat of a surprise this year, and I'm delighted. I mean, it's a great setup over at Lymm. I remember, I think it was 2001 probably, going over to Lymm for the first time with a mini and juniors team from Tarleton. Really impressive setup, and I know that they've been building on that. So I don't know whether you've got any thoughts on that game, but it looks another significant move forward for Lymm.
Yeah, and as you'll know, Mark, and a massive plug here for National League Rugby's preview show, which is, I know you've talked about before on your Substack, Mark, but we did feature Lymm last week, and I was just basically, it was to answer the questions that you just talked about, Mark. Really, like, you've been really interested to see their progression this year, and 10th in the table last season, and they've now, as you can see, with that victory against Harrogate, scoring 9 tries at the weekend, 5 wins from 5, maximum points to start the season. And they were basically saying, look, at pre-seasons where it all started, we wanted to get fitter. We learned a lot last year from being in National 2 North, and they've performed really, really well. I mean, 3 of the first 5 games have been away from home. So as soon as they return home, as you say, they continue that winning streak, and long may it continue from a Lymm perspective.
Excellent. And then the final result was 31-31, Preston Grasshoppers and Tyndale. Grasshoppers, as I outlined in past reviews, are one of my soft spots. Go back to around 1978 with Preston Grasshoppers, when I think I was sneaking into the bar there, age 16. But I've thoroughly enjoyed my touch points with Grasshoppers over the years, whether it's Garth Dew, whether it's Alex Keys, and I know Dan Orwin's doing a pretty spectacular job there at the moment. So good luck to Preston for the rest of the season, and likewise to Tyndale, and I'll be keeping an eye on Preston. It was a beautiful weekend to watch rugby. The conditions at Park Lane were absolutely marvellous. Positively sunbathing weather. What I found really interesting this weekend was the last play of the first half and the first play of the second half at Sedgley Park was effectively a 14-point swing, and I've just got the video clips of that to show you, but it was amazing to see how the crowd, who were suddenly rejuvenated on the 40th minute, to be suddenly told no try. The game restarted in the second half, and literally within 5 meters of the play at the end of the half, it was Bishop Stortford scoring, and it just changed the dynamic of the game. And the other thing I've learned is, just go and look for content, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Instagram. There's just brilliant content out there, and we should all be encouraging people to use that content. We shouldn't be keeping it to ourselves. So if you find something that you enjoy about rugby out there, why not let your friends know? So here we go. 40th minute, line out, tip off the top, good tackle from Stortford in the blue, Sedge in their normal strip. Nice break, good break, and it's hooker Ben Gregory on the shoulder. 10 meters to go, 5 meters, and oh no try given. And here we are at the start, first play of the second half. You'd think you were in the same part of the pitch. Stortford, good body position, good clear out. Once again, protecting the ball, making it available. Sedge not committing too many men to the breakdown, but here we go. Powerful drive, and it's a try. So 40th minute, no try. 41st minute, and it's a try. Changed the game, and Bishop Stortford deserving winners. Moving on, left-hand side of the screen, Alex Zavalis Roebuck, ex-Preston Grasshopper, and I think Chris even played at Stockport. Dynamic fly half, very, very proud of his Cypriot roots, and has been involved with this Cypriot national team, both as a player, as the physiotherapist, and now as assistant coach. I'm thrilled for Zav. He is so passionate about this level of international rugby. And Chris and I have got a good friend in Max Skofich, who's also played at this level of international rugby for Slovenia. It really is good rugby, and it's excellent to see Rugby Europe now being able to live stream games. So there you go. You could have watched Malta, Cyprus. And live stream is so important, I think, to rugby generally. When you see live stream pop up on your social media streams, do make sure you get out there, log on, have a look. There's some very, very entertaining content. Elsewhere around social media, having built up University of Bath last week, unfortunately, they weren't able to make it this week against Loughborough. I know when I first had involvement with Bath University, when my son was there, the Loughborough Bath game was called the Real Varsity, and it was always a massive game played at the Rec. Quite something for the university rugby players, and are now with Super Rugby, Book Super Rugby, those players are getting more and more exposure. And then just pick this one up on socials, Chris, and thought of you. Wilmslow, obviously over at the Salford Community Centre on Friday night with all the mini and juniors. Great to see. I know you've been down to Wilmslow Rugby Club on a couple of occasions, and there's a few of the ex-players that you stay in contact with.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great to see that mark, isn't it? I know you probably notice it as well that, before every home game, there is always, a local Northwest club, or the mini and juniors, should I say, of a local Northwest club that are running out on the pitch with the Sale Sharks players. And I think that's one of the, I might be being a bit biased here, but I think that's one of the great things about, Sale. They can use it as lip service and say, we do care about the Northwest region in general, but I do generally feel that comes out so much from the club. I know they have sort of Northern Rugby Matters, but when you do see all these different clubs represented on a Friday night or Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon at the Salford Community Stadium, it just does make you realise that, yes, okay, Sale are the elite club in the Northwest, but they do absolutely care about those clubs below, and including Wilmslow. So no, great to see all those mini and juniors getting a time on the pitch on Friday night.
And then interestingly, two tweets caught my eye. First from Murray Kinsella, Murray, I think, even wrote for Talking Rugby Union in the early days with Gary Irwin, Chris, but Murray's gone on to some pretty great work on Irish rugby, and it's interesting to see here he's picking up on French media, worrying about Stuart Lancaster. One for us to keep an eye on, and the other is the WXV women's rugby competition over in Canada, and Telegraph reporting that the RFU have been told by World Rugby to stay silent over the poor crowds, and that's a rather interesting tweet from Fee Thomas.
Yeah, I've met Fee a couple of times at the Rugby Writers, in part of the Rugby Writers Club, Mark, and she is certainly one of the best journalists out there. So it just seems very bizarre that that's what World Rugby are telling the RFU to do. I mean, I don't know if you saw it, Mark, at the weekend. England played New Zealand in WXV. And it's obviously New Zealand, the world champions, and England are currently world number one. And it was a brilliant first half. It was a fantastic game overall. And it sets up things incredibly nicely for next year's home World Cup, which obviously England are hosting and will want to try and get their hands on the big prize. But the crowds for that England-New Zealand game over the weekend were shocking. And,
right.
I think the fact that World Rugby are telling the RFU to stay silent, I think, in a weird sort of way, I just find it bizarre because everybody can see it. These. I know it's over in Canada, and it might not be as easy for people to attend and stuff like that. But watching it last night is the first thing you see. You're supposed to be looking at two of the best teams in the world and saying, Jess Breach is scoring a hat trick again and Ellie Gildun's flying, but your attention's turned to all the empty seats in the stands. So yeah, World Rugby protecting their WXV competition, but people talking more about what's happening in the stands than on the pitch, which is a bit of a shame.
But nonetheless, Chris, I think for the work that you do with Talking Rugby Union and with National League Rugby, really encouraging people to get and watch rugby is so important. And I think, kudos to you for being able to encourage everybody to get down and watch live rugby. Just to finish our chat, Chris, which has been hugely enjoyable for me, and I do appreciate your time. I've been researching more about sport in Lancashire, and given your affinity for all things Liverpool, I thought I'd do a little research in the Liverpool Echo this week. And I found it very interesting that back in 1880, the fixtures were under the heading football, brackets rugby rules. And there we have New Brighton and Birkenhead Park, Liverpool, Chester. So some interesting teams playing. And a week later, we've got Lancashire versus Cheshire. What a great game. I mean, county championship. Well, people very often say that there's no future in the county championship. Well, here we are back in 1882, and they're going for it. And just finishing off on getting people to watch live rugby, I was intrigued that in 1880, the Rugby Union are not quite satisfied with the amount of support which their important matches receive in the metropolis. Wow, there's a challenge being set for rugby fans in Liverpool. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right, Mark. I think we said before, didn't we, that the Northwest is really passionate about the rugby, but where it says they're quite satisfied with the amount of support which their important matches received, I think it's a bit of a expensive day out to go to Twickenham if you do live in the Northwest area, as I know, trying to get the train up there and getting tickets. So to hear them say that's all the way back in 1880, Mark, is very interesting indeed.
And as always, I do rely very heavily on the content that I find on Talking Rugby Union and National League Rugby, and encourage everybody to get over and have a look at talkingrugbyunion.co.uk and National League Rugby. Do make comment, do subscribe, do share, do like. It's really important that creators like Chris get your support. And once again, Chris, thanks for your time today and best of luck for the rest of the season.
No problem, Mark. It's been a pleasure joining you. Thanks for having me.